Console game exclusivity is a trend that needs to die, and there are many reasons why it should and probably still exists, but when you got toxic fandoms behaving like this, it makes you question if this is the direction we need to go in the future. No reason you should be acting out like this or saying things like there's no point in consoles anymore. Grow up. Flame078 here, the normal gamer, breaking down gaming from the average perspective. So today, let's end the console war once and for all. So one thing to understand is that yes, exclusivity is pretty beneficial for a development team. While yes, there are resources like game engines and dev kits that make it easy to develop your game for all platforms, it is still a resource that could be problematic for a development team to handle. It is why I say some developers like the idea of only working on one platform. I work on web applications, so even just saying make sure the application looks good on your phone, tablet, and computer makes it so I need to have extra steps to ensure that. Game development works the same way and probably more complex than what I even explained. Sure, on a technical level, these consoles are more and more like PCs than ever before, but there are differences to these platforms that is enough that it should not be dismissed easily. The only other benefit to an exclusive lies in hardware, specifically hardware sales. If the only place to play that game is on a specific platform, then those who want to play it will end up getting that hardware. That is how things have worked for a long time, and it's made sense. It is why you do see the vocal minority of Xbox players salty that their platform is becoming useless. Because, well, what is the point if you don't need an Xbox to play Xbox games? The same thing we are seeing with the Sony pony fanboys, bashing ports that are coming to PC. But the thing is, there are gaps and failures of this mindset that have been introduced because modern gaming has moved towards a direction that make these two pro arguments for exclusivity really fucking pointless. Just in the last half a decade or so, two key features have become a staple and expected in modern titles, at least in multiplayer, but you are seeing them in single player titles as well. Cross progression and cross play, both which features I believe are fundamental in gaming. Cross progression is really key for free-to-play games, but also games that are multi-platform in general. Just imagine the convenience now that we have to say, oh, I'm gonna play Halo Infinite on my Xbox because I want to play on my couch for a bit, but you know what? When I want to get serious, I'm gonna play that on my gaming PC, or any kind of combination of that mindset. Cross progression is an amazing feature that breaks down the barriers of platform loyalty and allows for everyone to take advantage of what makes a platform amazing. Crossplay is huge. No more segmenting player bases. Player bases are united, allowing for more players to get into matches faster and ensures healthy matchmaking. Sure, we still have some issues to overcome at the highest levels, but overall, gamers are happier with being able to play with anyone who owns the game. So how do these features affect the exclusivity conversation? Let's talk about the gaming population. I'm a person who owns all four major places to game: PlayStation, Xbox, Switch, and PC. The idea of exclusivities never bothered me because, well, I never wanted that to be the reason I couldn't play a game I wanted to play. But what is more realistic? Me or someone who has maybe one of the two big consoles, PlayStation or Xbox, and maybe have a PC, but maybe they don't like PC gaming, so swap that out with a Switch. My PC ran me $1,500 plus $500 for the PS5 plus $300 for the Switch and another $300 for the Series S. That is a lot of fucking money to drop in this economy. And also, that doesn't include all the games you would need to buy that you want to play. So the question becomes, how are exclusives hurting the player base if you start breaking down the demographics of who owns what? Are there only Sony ponies? And are there only Xbox? Like, is that how we're breaking that down? Let's take a look at the numbers. It is no denying that today there are more PS5 owners than they are Xbox owners. But that is not the whole story. It's just a trend that has been happening since the disaster launch of Xbox One. And it was a disaster because Xbox decided to pull some really anti-consumer bullshit that turned users of the 360, like myself, to PlayStation. But that's only one side of the story. A study conducted around that generation of consoles gathered that 50% of those that owned a PlayStation owned an Xbox One. And considering the outcry, the inverse was stronger. Practically 75% of those that owned an Xbox had a PlayStation. So again, considering the DRM bullshit makes a lot of sense. But that was the initial start of that generation, and over time, Microsoft's shady decisions about not putting out good games that brought and kept people to the platform made it so now you see a growing trend that most gamers had both systems. And this leads into this generation where early data in 2021 showed that maybe 35% of gamers own both platforms. But take into fact that the start of this new console generation, you could barely get any of the new gen consoles. But even so, the trend I believe is still the same. Most people prefer playing on PlayStation for their exclusives and then just have the Xbox for the auxiliary. But then again, depending on who you ask, it could be inverse. A lot of people actually prefer Xbox community over PlayStation, and that's where they play most of their games. And they have PlayStation for those rare exclusives. So you have a population now that more than likely has both consoles. So for them, exclusivities won't really matter as much because at least they own it and they'll play it if they want to play the game. So with that becoming the trend and the norm, that also plays into the fact, why do we need exclusives then? So what is exclusives doing right now to the gaming community? It really is only hurting financially both the players and the studios. Consumers are not going to waste money if they don't need to. Sure, a trend, let's say rough estimate 40 to 50% own both consoles. That's 50% of people who are either only PlayStation or only Xbox. Because again, having a $500 paperweight is a financially stupid move in this economy. I've said as much. And I've talked about my experience by owning everything where Xbox is not used as much because I mostly play on my PlayStation. So think about that as well, especially for gamers who gravitate towards simple, typical, same type of games like 2K sports games or Call of Duty. They're not going to care where they play it on. They're going to play it on where they're more comfortable. So you're going to have a combination of people playing on the main platform and going over to the secondary one for certain games. So we're generalizing right here, but let's spit some numbers. The rising dual ownership of Xbox and Sony is 40 to 50%. That leaves the other half being single console owners. And we know that more than likely it'll be a PlayStation over an Xbox, but that's not really too much of a factor in here because either way, that 50% of gamers are always going to be missing out on the exclusive on the other platform. So no matter which side, you're leaving players on the table that you could be making customers. So the question I ask, if the sales of hardware is going to become less important for these companies, then what is the point of having exclusives? And when you see higher ups of these companies starting to understand this, especially when it comes to live service multiplayer titles, being an exclusive hurts. At this point, really, aren't consoles just preference? No different than owning an iPhone or an Android. Games should be available anywhere where the developer wants to put it, and we should have the right to choose where to play it on. Flame078 here. Until next time, adios.